We are proud members of the Spy Podcast Network. Find out more at www.spypodcasts.com.
Hello and welcome back to Spy Hard's podcast. I'm Agent Scott.
And I'm Cam the Provocateur.
And we are continuing our potential final run with Jason Bourne this week. We did the Bourne Roundtable a couple of days ago, and we're here with another Jason Bourne SpyMaster interview. Cam, who are we talking to?
We are talking to Nicky Naudé, who was the actor and fight choreographer involved in the huge Bourne breakthrough fight scene involving a pen in the Bourne Identity.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we chose this week to do the Bourne Roundtable is because it is the 20th anniversary of the Bourne Identity, so I couldn't think of a better way of celebrating it than having Nicky Naudé on the show. We spoke to him a couple of months ago now, but we were saving it to release this week because, this fight sequence that he helped put together, and we'll get into that in the interview, is potentially one of the most memorable things from that film. And it's a really fun interview. I hope you will enjoy it, and we'll see you on the other side. Cam, roll it. And joining us here on the show today, it is Castel himself from the Bourne Identity, Mr. Nicky Naudé. How are you doing, Nicky?
I'm pretty good, thank you. And how are you?
All right, surviving. I haven't got a pen stuck into my hand, so I'm doing okay.
Yeah, be careful. We never know, what can happen.
I keep one with me at all times, just in case. I need to defend myself. But I think, we are here to talk about the Bourne Identity and your role as Castel in the film. But I think before we get there, what I like to do when we have guests on the show is just get to know you a little bit better. So the first question I always like to ask is, what prompted you to get into the industry, Hollywood, acting, stunt work, all that sort of stuff?
Well, since when I first got in France, I was, because I'm also Canadian, and I was like 8 years old, and I watched a film, Le Bossu, with Jean Marais, very famous French actor at the time, and it's some sort of Capé d'Épée film. And when I watched that film, I take a look at my mom, I said, what, for the future, I just want to be like this guy. I want to act. I want to do some action. I just want to be like this guy. And at the same time, same year, Bruce Lee died. And then it was like a shock. And that just, gave me even more motivation to be an actor and some sort of action actor, I guess. And I started to do martial art, same time. I was 8 years old. And all my life, I've been through that two different passions, of acting, art, let's say, with a big A, and the martial arts and the fighting, combat, and all that.
Well, I'd love to know, Bruce Lee, you say, was a big influence. What was like the first experience you remember of seeing something Bruce Lee did and being wowed by it?
When I first saw him, on screen, and it was at the time, well, I'm getting confused, with the English title. Oh, Enter the Dragon. And when I saw this film, I said, holy cow, this guy is like just such a brilliant actor, and what he does, on screen as a martial artist, it's crazy. And then I just wanted to know more about him. Because the same, like I said, same year, he died. So then I started to, buy some books and some, because at the time we didn't have internet. So we had to collect books and, and through my practice also, I met different people. And that's the first emotion that I had for martial arts. It was from Bruce Lee.
Well, that's actually leads me on to my next question beautifully. You're speaking of martial arts. Now, I know obviously you didn't really get into the film side of things until a little bit later on in your early years, but did you study martial arts early on? Was that something you jumped on when you were watching the films? And what disciplines did you study?
Kung Fu. I studied, yeah, I just wanted to be like the guy, so I studied by Kung Fu. And when I was 12 years old, I started also the kickboxing and the English boxing because I also wanted to prove myself that, it's cool to practice martial arts, but if I am getting to some real fight, like a sport real fight, I mean, not like on the street, because this is ridiculous to fight on the streets, man. Even if that happened at the time, I was a kid too, so I had to defend myself. But just to go back on the martial arts, yeah, I just wanted to know if I'm good or not. So that's why, I started the kickboxing, English boxing, and then I started to fight, on the ring. So I became France and a European champion junior on the American kickboxing, full contact, at the time. But still working on the martial arts and the weapons, the nunchakus, sticks, whatever, swords a lot also. So I've been practicing on one hand the traditional martial arts, and on the other all the fighting kickboxing.
I saw a video on YouTube today of you training and some pretty hardcore training that I saw you do. I just thought, well, that was I mean, I used to do Krav Maga myself, and I none of those heights. I did some injuries, and I can't do it anymore. But like, you are still going for it. It's a fair play, because that's hard stuff.
Yeah, I'm still, and I think I told you, Scott. The last weekend, I did a France championship. As a veteran actually, and I just won the gold medal, so which is not too bad,
Wow.
For a man of my age, I guess, So, but the thing is, that and the key actually is to just keep on training the old time. I mean, maybe even one day, of course, you're not going to be really old, but even I will do some Tai Chi, whatever, I still want to move all my life, to the very end. But so far, I feel still good, and that was a proof, last weekend, and we had a lot of fun also. It's important I do that because I enjoy myself. It's part of my life. It's a way of life, I guess.
Well, I'd love to know, just to maintain that and keep it going, how much, what is your training regimen like in a week?
Wow, it's almost every day. Even if it's a little something, even if it's like an hour, because I don't have time, doing different things. But almost every day, and because I need to. It's a drug. Adrenaline, for me, it's a drug, and that's the best one you can use, and it's natural. It's the one you have inside you, and even if I do have like once in a while, like very good wine, and because I love life too, I enjoy myself, like I said. But the training, the martial arts, the whatever, because I do also like just training weights also, and the cardiovascular, any kind of training with swimming, running, but I have to do a little something almost every day. And to get some rest, of course, sometimes when I feel myself too tired, then, I take a break for like 1-2 days. But let's say minimum 5 days a week.
Well, how old were you when you got into martial arts? Like what age?
What when I started martial arts?
Yeah.
8. 7, 8.
Were you really like an active kid? Like, was jumping into something with a very strong discipline a natural fit for you?
You can say active kid, totally. I couldn't stand, for me, even school, was hard for me to stay there sitting for like, 6-7 hours all day long. My goodness, even between 1 and during lunchtime, I could eat like very fast, just to keep on running, moving, doing things. you can say that very active since since ever.
Well, you took another question out of my mouth there, but leading back to the the contest you went to the weekend just before, I was actually going to ask you on the show how you did. So you've already answered. You won a gold medal. Congratulations.
Yeah, I can even send you some. I'm sorry, excuse me, Scott. I can send you some footage of the
Sure.
what we did. Because it's in the Kung Fu Wushu. There is one discipline called the Dulian. Dulian, it's just a fighting choreography, actually. So it's one of my creation on the top of it. And so it's like in the Bourne Identity, actually, with knife, we just attack each other, with knives, and yeah, it's a lot of, like I said before, it's a lot of pleasure to do it, but also to show that to people and to martial artists pro on the top of it, and to be judged, because you go there. It's not to get money. At least, yeah, maybe if you're good, you're gonna have that medal, but it's just to be there, and to still, it's like in a homage of Bruce Lee, actually. I'm like, I think about the guy, and they're like, hey, you know what? I'm still here. I'm still doing it, and sharing with all the people around. And yeah, we did pretty cool. It went very well.
Good. Well, you've send us that footage because I'd love to share it with people. But
I will.
You lead me on very beautifully to I think the topic we want to talk about when it comes to fight choreography, and that is the Bourne Identity. So let's dive into it a little bit. How did you get connected with the project to start off with?
At the time, the second unit director, Alexander Veit, they saw the film the Crimson River from Mathieu Kassovitz, Les Rivières Pourpres in French. And I was in the film, and I also direct all the actions, all the fighting choreography, and all the stunts, in the film. And at the time, they were looking for the part of Castel, so they started to do the casting in New York, in Italy, in England, everywhere, and they couldn't find the right guy, and Alexander Veit, for some reasons, went to see the Crimson River from Mathieu Kassovitz. And when he saw the film, he saw me and the big fight in the film that we're doing with Vincent Castel. When he went back to the studio, he talked to Doug Liman, and he said, you know what? I think we got the part of Castel because I saw one guy in the film, and I think it fits perfectly for the part of Castel. So then they were looking for me through the different movies company like La Gaumont. Finally, they got in touch with me. They asked me to come. I met Doug Liman, he's a character, himself. And he said, yeah, Nicky, I heard about you from Alexander, the second unit director. And he told me that maybe, on and on and on, that you may be good for the part. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and see the film, and, we call you back next day or something like this. The company called me back, Universal. They say, Nicky, we want you there right now, because you get the part of Castel.
Wow.
That's an easy casting process. I like that. That's
simple as that.
Well, interestingly then, so you've got the call from Doug Liman, based on a referral, which is the best way to be, because someone's seen that you're good at it and they want you to do their job. What did the character and the scene look like when you first came to the project? Because I imagine these things tend to evolve on set. So was the scene choreographed exactly how we saw it, or was it different? Where was it?
We started to work on the choreography with Nick Powell. Nick Powell was he's an Englishman from the big family of the Sun people, the big Powell family. And so we did the creation all together. And he also knew me from by reputation. So he did the job, but every day he was asking me about, Nicky, what do you think? What do you prefer? Do you want to do this move or whatever, So he did the creation, but just let's say that I brought my participation, on the fighting choreography, but he's the main guy, who did the choreography. And And we, with Matt Damon, which is such a lovely guy, really. I mean, he's a sweetie, really. I mean, he's very good because he's a real pro and he's so smart on the top of it. I really like the guy. And when we met, we just got along together, just like wham, like in one day, felt, that I had the impression that I met this guy, for like 10 years already, that we were friends. So that's much more easier, mostly when you have to fight, even if it's not for real, but it's still a fight. And there is still some danger, mostly when you put some push daggers, some knife, some bottles, some sticks, some guns, like the one I have when I get through the window, when I start the fight. So you better be nice to each other and to have some trust. And so we've been working for this fight over 5 weeks, 4 times a week, 4 or 5 times a week, every day, just to make it like perfect, just to make it like the way it looks.
Mm-hmm.
The style of fighting in Bourne movies is very specific. It's something that became a real touchstone of that series, and a lot of movies would start to copy it. But I'd like to know, as someone who is an expert, and you are there for the choreography of this sequence, what do the Bourne movies do differently that other movies don't do?
It's a mixed, it's like a milkshake, of different flavors, right? And I think, and that's why, it's still like very choreographic somehow, but it looks like also very realistic. And because we brought some different style of close combat, Krav Maga, Penchak Silat, all those different style, which is like more brutal somehow. And I think what we did also, it's to bring an emotion in the action. So the acting of this scene is very important also. We brought something different, through the all different combinations of different style, but at the same time, the acting, what I brought, in my crazy, robotic punk, whatever, and the fact that he doesn't have he lost his memory, and it brings back the memory as soon as we start a fight and everything. All this emotion, brought something like different. Instead, like I said, all the different style we used in the action. And that's why then, when I saw even Daniel Gregg or Keanu Reeves or, some other people, well, basically they just fight like we did somehow, they brought also up years after years, they try to change like different combinations or whatever, but just, they copy, I don't know if it's the right word, but the influence, of this fight just changed the rules, I guess, of fighting in the movies industry.
Yeah, because when I think about it, so many of the action movies of the 90s that I grew up watching, stuff with, Van Damme, Seagal, those guys, plus we talk about James Bond on this podcast a lot as well. A lot of the time, the hero character would be very, fairly still and emotionless, and the bad guys would kind of run at them. Whereas when I think of, the Bourne fights, it's very much, as you said, there's a lot of emotion, and it's like a real driving momentum behind the hero.
Totally, and that's why, we just did this fight, and we showed like in a different side that I mean, like you said, Van Damme and all those guys that I have a lot of respect, and it's because they also, brought something, I guess, different about Bruce Lee, but what we did, I guess, it's more like Shakespeare somehow, it's more like some sort of dramatic fight. And it's not only like a fight by itself, because it's well done, the way we fight, all the choreography, the motions and all that, which is quite good. And some perfection, I don't know, because it's very hard to touch the perfection, but we did something quite good because we've been working a lot, to have that result. But like I said again, that feeling, that emotion that you have in this fight, it's also like the plus, it's something that really just make it even more different, I guess.
Well, some of the best fight sequences I think of are not just two people hitting each other. It's actually telling a story within that without saying any words. And this is one of those fights I think that's very successful at it because, you know, Bourne's understanding his powers, as it were. He's learning that he can fight and defend himself. And you yourself, Castel, is learning that Bourne is a lot more than he had programmed for, and he's slowly being defeated to the point where he, you know, jumps out of the window at the end. And that's a testament to the story that you told in that scene between you and Matt. So, you know, thank you for that. I think it was great. My question is sort of a two-part, so I'll come back to the other half. But when it comes to Doug Liman and Matt Damon, because you choreographed the scene with Nick, and then you take the scene to Doug. Do you show him what you've come up with, and they approve it, or is it Matt that approves it? How does that sequence work?
I mean, he did straight up, you know, when he saw what we broke, you know, because even for my character, you know, I asked him like few questions, you know, of course. I said, how do you see this guy, you know, Castel, who is he, you know, does he have a past or whatever, you know, just to build, you know, my character, you know. And Doogie is such, like I said, you know, he's different, but I love him, you know, because he brings. Sometimes he doesn't have the words, you know, to explain, to tell you, you know, but he has that sort of moon feeling or whatever. And he said something very in one word. I said, "So how do you see this guy?" He said, "Well, he is some sort of jackass." I said, thank you, Doug. That's I'm not sure totally to understand exactly, but that's enough. I mean, don't you worry. I'm gonna compose something, and you will tell me if it's good for you. And when I wrote my part, you know, he said, "Nicky, yeah, that's just the way I see things about Castel." So, hey, it worked. Even if I didn't have so many explanations, but yeah, we got. I mean, there was more like some feeling, I guess, you know, the feeling between Doug and I, you know, and I touched just the right spot, you know, just to put my place, you know, in the film.
So. Previously on the show, we've spoken to a chap called Joey Anser, who was in another fight sequence with Matt Damon in The Bourne Ultimatum. Probably the best fight sequence in that film, too. He played a character called Desh. And he spoke about just the work ethic that Matt Damon had and the amount of time that he put into it. And you spoke about it just briefly there, but just maybe a little bit more about working with Matt Damon.
Well, Matt, from the very beginning, he's not a fighter, but he's a worker. And he put himself like in such a good condition, and he's been learning different style, you know, for like few months, even before to start the film. And you could tell because he had a couple stunt doubles, you know, but when we did the fight, they didn't do nothing. Matt did all the fight, you know, by himself, because we've been working that 5 weeks together, you know, experiment, you know, and just make it even better, the fight by itself. But like I said before, he had like different coach training, Jet Kundo, Junfa, Pencak Silat, Krav Maga, different style, you know. So he's been working a lot, you know, to get ready for the film. And when we met, he was already like sharp. He was like fit, you know, so it was easier. We didn't have, even if we were still looking for, and we did even more choreography that we don't see in the film, that they cut, you know, for some reasons, because they decided that it was like there already. It's quite long, but it was even longer. So that's why we had to work even more when we were rehearsal before the film. And I remember we were supposed to have like they missed something. So during the film, we already did the two in two different parts. The first part in Paris, and then when we had to shoot guns and everything, we had to do it in a studio in Prague. So, and it was like between the both parts, it was like months. So we have to keep on training. So that's why, you know, I went to Prague to keep on training with him. And then at the very end of the film, like 5 months after, in June or something like that, they wanted to reshoot something. So we had to keep on training. For me, my job was, I made quite some good money for that. I had to keep my hair blonde and a little beard, whatever, and to keep sharp and to train with Matt for the 5 next months, just to make sure that if they wanted to do the reshoot, and by memory, I think they even didn't. But they just wanted me to be there just in case. And for Matt, that was cool because at the same time we were still training, and which is crazy because he was shooting daytime, and on the evening he was doing like an hour and a half training with, not every day, but like let's say twice a week with me, just to make sure that he's not going to lose, he's not going to forget about the choreography, and just to keep on, So I was some sort of training partner somehow, just to make sure Matt, is going to be in a good physical condition, because he has this fight with me, but different fights and a couple different actions, in the film. So yeah, Matt is exceptional somehow. Like I said, he's so pro. He's so, he so invests, somehow, he really put himself deeply into what he does, and that's a good example. And it was really lovely to work, with this gentleman.
Well, this is the first time he plays Bourne. I was curious if you kept up with the other films he did.
I do have a little preference, I guess, for the first one. Not only because I'm into it, no, just because the way direct and tell the story of the first one, I think it's for me it's the best one. Then Greengrass, by memory, did the last, the two, number 2, number 3, and the 4 by memory. It's very good too, but no, I'm not. I do respect, of course, and it's very cool to see Matt again, as Jason Bourne. But no, I wasn't convinced, like on the first film, first part.
Yeah, because I was just really curious, as someone who was there for the inception of the Bourne style of action, what you thought of as it progressed forward and how it changed and in some ways stayed the same.
Yeah, pretty much. So you're not impressed because the first one was brand new. Mm-hmm. So of course, yeah. So you get used to it. It's like the James Bond, it's like the leather weapon, the whatever, it's very hard. For example, there is one, the sequel of Terminator. Number 1, I loved it, but the second one, is so great. It's even much better than the first one. So it's very rare. Sometimes it's more like the first one because you don't know. Like Predator also, it's the same. The first one was so great, but then after,
yeah,
you're happy because mostly if you love the character, if you love some action, of course, you're gonna like it somehow. But like I said, I wasn't surprised, let's say, and not very impressed, but of course happy to see Matt again, in part of Jason Bourne, and there is some action and there is some very good scenes, the car race and all that it works, like in James Bond, they how many, 26 of them or something like that. So some of them, they just like incredible, and some others they okay, because as a kid, I loved and I still like James Bond. So yeah, it's like you're happy to see it again, but if you have to make an appreciation, of what you see, just like, okay, some of them they're good, some others, they're not that good. So, but like I said, I really do respect Paul Greengrass, for what he did and for all the different sequels. But I think, the first one, I'm really, I like to, I love to be in the film, but just the film, by itself, it works so good.
Yeah. And one of the things that the first one really set up was the fighting with, household objects. You have the pen in the first film. And I would just love to know, where did that come from? Was that an idea that, the choreographer had? Like, how did that kind of come out of the ether?
We were looking for something like new and strange and realistic. And that's what you learn in close combat. Close combat, when you're in the army, and that's the way it is. I prove, the fact that when you're in the army and when you're fighting mano mano, if you can kill the guy, you will do it, because it's one or the other. That's the way of fighting, mostly when you are like in a war zone, right? So those guys, they prepared with everything. It's like with even glasses, could be a weapon. Everything could be a weapon, anything. So that was a very brilliant idea, because a pen, it's like a knife. If you know how to stab, with a pen, it's a weapon. So when you're like an agent of CIA, FBI, like a professional soldier, and you're going to be in some interaction, with someone who wants to kill you, what you're going to do, you're going to try to find, mostly if you don't have a gun, a knife, or like a proper weapon, what you're going to do, you're going to find, mostly on the street, it's going to be a garbage, it's going to be anything you can find to end up the fight. So the pen, we were thinking, we were looking for, and after like a little while, I don't remember who exactly had that good idea, but I guess it's Nick. I don't remember, but when we did it, I thought that was like brilliant. It was, and it's working still. I'm amazed, to be honest. It's crazy that I'm still talking about this film and my part. 20 years after, it's crazy. It became cult somehow, and just like I said, probably because we changed like the rules, fighting, and with things like the pen, for example.
You go back, you like watch John Wick Chapter 3, and he's fighting the whole sequence with a book in the library. And it's like, in terms of American movies, that pen really did change the way that action scenes happen. You saw a lot more of this household objects being worked in. And Scott and I are going to be, did tackle the third Triple X film, where you also have a book fight going on. So it really did change the game.
Yep.
It's interesting, really, because you say like it has a cult status and people are still talking about it. I think it's beyond that. Bourne Identity is a mainstream film, and it has affected mainstream cinema to the point where people say, "Let's shoot it in a Bourne style. Let's have this fight in a Bourne style." And a lot of that stems from this fight that you helped put together. So I think credit where credit's due. You've changed action cinema with that 3-minute scene.
Yeah. And I'm so proud and very, like I said, amazed and surprised somehow, and so happy, because, and I wish now I'm going to do another film like that, maybe with 2 pens.
Someone's going to get a pencil soon.
Because it's no, and mostly because some films, sometimes you said about Van Damme or Steven Seagal or whatever, when we first saw the film at the time, it was great, and you see the film like few years after, and it's getting a little older, I mean, the action and the acting, and so that's why also I go back on the emotion of the film, the way it's direct, and what we did, with the fight and all that. I mean, it's still like it didn't get old. It's you can watch it on and on. Some people sometimes they say, you know what, Nicky? I still watched the Bourne Identity, yesterday on the TV, and it's still rock on. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. It's still working, and which is great. Yeah.
So I mentioned the chap we've had on the show, Jerry Anser, who did another fight with Matt Damon in another Bourne film. And on the set of that, accidentally, of course, Matt Damon struck him quite hard in the face as part of the scene. So what I wanted to sort of ask was there any sort of mishaps in the creation of this fight? It's full contact stuff. People are going to get hit, but was there any sort of particular standout hits? With
all respect, of course, of Matt, but he he punched me and touched me like a couple times, and during the rehearsals, and also during on the set. But just to again to show how he's a real gentleman. After the film, when it was totally finished, that we didn't have to fight again, for some reason, from reshoot or, retakes, or from his driver. His driver came to my place at the time in Paris, and he bought me like a box of champagne Veuve Clicquot, a big box. So I took 2 bottles. I went to his his hotel, and we drank the champagne together. And I said, Matt, that really proved that how nice you are, and it's part of the game. Also, like I said, even if it's a fake fight, it's a fight.
Mm-hmm.
So there is still like some danger. I must say, when you use the push dagger, knives, whatever, there is a part of danger. And a punch, even if it's a soft hand, it's a punch. So there is a technique to do that. But at least mostly Matt was brand new in the game. So yeah, he punched me a couple of times, but so gently somehow. And like I said, then we drank the champagne. So what about that?
Well, one aspect of this fight we haven't talked about really is your character has the most amazing introduction and exit from a scene. And I don't think there's anyone in that entire franchise who can compare to you in that particular regard. I would just like to know, I would just love to know about shooting those 2 bits, the crashing through the glass and then diving out the window.
It was quite dangerous, actually, the first one, because the glass, even if it's some sort of fake glass, but it's still some real glass, and it was thick enough, to cut me a couple of times. Mostly after the 4th time I got through the first window to get into the apartment, then I started to bleed, all over, like Jesus. And they said, Nicky, we done for the day. I said, yeah, you better, because I'm getting tired. It's dangerous to do that. And mostly because I still need my face, to shoot the next day. So they say, yeah, we done. And they had the good one after 4th time. And when I kill myself, when I prefer to get suicide than to be killed, but so which is one of the difference compared to all the different guys, fight, all the different agent and killers after. He killed them. Me? No, he doesn't kill me. I kill myself. So we decided to get, to go through the window. It was very dangerous because it was on the 4th floor, and it was like only like a small platform. I'm gonna try to find a picture, of me flying in the air, for rehearsal, and you will see, and you can realize that it was dangerous. When I did it, mostly because I didn't want to use my hand, like just going crazy, like almost with my head, and just flying somehow. I did it only once, and it worked. It was the perfect one. And to be honest, the second one, I was like, hey, if there is someone who wants to do it, go for it. But me, no, I don't want to do it anymore. It was a scary shit, really. It was very scary. But I did it. It went well. And the first shot, was a good one.
I hope the crew applauded you for that one, because it's an amazing shot.
And many people around, on the street, because they knew that Matt Damon, was here, shooting a movie. So it was like thousands of people, in on the streets, just waiting. And they heard that we're going to do some stunt, we're going to do some action. So when and everybody there, said, you don't say a word, you don't say nothing, except when we say cut. And when I was in the platform like this, I say, holy cow, I'm alive, which is great already, Then finally they say, cut. And then I just got up on the platform. I said, I'm the king of the world. And all the people downstairs, they were like, yay! They were applauding. It was great, man, but I was scared. I was totally scared, man.
You'd have to be. That I'm sure that's a hell of a height to jump from. People keep talking about the pen. The fight also involves a lot of knife play. Now, I assume that was like a rubber prop knife you were using, something like that.
Nope.
Oh.
Oh, hang on. Hang on. Maybe I have like a little souvenir somewhere. I don't know if it's here. No, it's.
Oh, wow.
What about that?
Look at that.
What about that? This is the one. And can you hear that?
That's not a
Yeah.
prop. That's not a
It's
prop.
not rubber.
Mm.
It's aluminum. It's for real. So yeah, the push dagger, you know. You see, whoa, that hurts.
Wow.
No, it wasn't a fake one. It was this one.
I was not expecting you to have it there. Because my next question was going to be, did you keep any souvenirs?
Wow.
You kind of answered that question for me. That's I thought you might keep the pen, but that actually the knife's actually way cooler.
It is.
So with the knife sort of midi part of the scene, you use the knife when you're attacking Bourne, and because obviously the pen is the thing people tend to talk about, but I think the knife is a more dangerous implement that you're using there. Which came first, the pen or the knife?
Knife was yeah. We wanted to use it, they call it push dagger, and that little push dagger, you know, it was already, you know, in the fights. They wanted to use the push dagger, you know, and which is lovely because it's a small weapon, you know. It's like almost like a fist, you know. You don't see it much, you know, compared to like a big knife. So this one is much more dangerous.
Yes.
You know, because you don't see it, and mostly because by memory it was on my boots, you know, hiding on my boots, and yeah, it was, and suddenly I just take it out, you know, and started to fight with the knife, and he realized that I have something, you know, strange and different, you know, in my hand, and yeah, so that was an idea of Nick Powell by memory.
Well, the reason I brought up the knife, and this is more of a choreographical question, I suppose. What is harder to sort of choreograph in a fight scene? Is it bare hands, knuckle to knuckle, that sort of stuff? Is it knife fighting, or is it pen fighting? What's harder to put a fight scene together with? What was the more difficult scene to put together?
Well, like for the Jason Bourne, for example, before any kind of fight, you know, when you use a weapon, even if it's like aluminum or whatever, there is like more danger. Was that, you know? So when it's like only hands and bare hands, you know, feet or whatever, of course there is a danger, you know, but not as when you use a weapon, any kind of weapons, like sword fight, for example. That really, yeah. There is a different concentration just to make sure you don't get hurt. And you're going to take even more time, you know. You're going to get very slow from the start, and, you know, step by step, day after day, then you're going to put the speed into it. But like with bare hands, mostly if you train with someone who's a little used to already, it's, like I said, there is still like a danger, but less, of course, than when you use any kind of weapon.
And just with the actual choreographing that scene as well, and when you're shooting it now, how many times was the sort of fight broken down into different shots? Because obviously, a lot of the day you'll see, well, it seems like one continuous fight, but obviously with the magic of filmmaking, it's probably lots of different shots put together. But what's sort of the longest sequence in the fight do you remember that you and Matt had to sort of learn?
Just to give you an example, just to be very precise on what we did, for example, the first part in Paris, you know, took 3 days full, all day long, okay, to redo, to reshoot, you know, different angles and everything, 3 days. And like I said, the other part, because we couldn't shoot on the ceiling and all that with the Uzi gun, machine gun and all that, we did also 3 days, 3 or 4 days. In Prague. So it's 6-7 days of shooting every day, 8, 10, 12 hours. So which is crazy. It's like when you're like a pro boxer or whatever, even like a pro boxer, kickboxer, or whatever, to do that kind of day, you know, of working, fighting, even if it's fake, you know, they go like, whoa, hey, this is crazy. I mean, you get very tired, you know, from that, because it's also the thing that you're not supposed to hurt. You got to pretend, You got to act, but you're not supposed to hurt someone. So it's not the same when you give like a real punch, when you hit like the heavy bag or whatever, you just, you just throw the whole energy there, it's, you just got to keep it just to make sure you're not going to hurt, but pretend at the same time on screen, wow, the people, the audience, the spectators, they got to be afraid. They got to be, they got to feel the pain or the violence. So which is even harder somehow. It's very technical, and that really, that really, you need to just deal with your energy like a little different, like if it was for real or like a real trainer, or you can just like let it go.
Well, I was just really curious, everything you're talking about there, the number of things you have to keep in your mind during a sequence like this. It's obviously got to be high energy and intense. You've got, weapons flying around and fists and all that sort of thing. At the same time, you're trying to, as an actor, stay within the mindset of your character and bring the scene to an emotional truth. Are you calm when you're shooting these scenes? Like, you talked about kind of centering your energy. Like, how do you do that? Like, what is the key to getting through these scenes and making this stuff work?
Like I said, mostly if you know that you're going to shoot for like all day long, like, like 6, 7, 8, 12 hours, mostly when you have a director like Duke, who wants to have a little more and a little more and a little more, like a different angle, you better stay calm. And when you have the chance to take a break, you take that break for real. You just like me, I can even sleep like on set. Sometime I just put myself like I just in some sort of relaxation total. Then when Nicky, we need you on set. Okay, just give me like a second. I just warm up a little bit, and then you get ready for the action. If you just burn all your energy because you're just like going crazy, and mostly when you play someone violent like that, if you don't want to hurt someone and if you want to keep the energy, you better use the energy when you have action, cut. Simple as that. As soon as it's finished, you get to breathe. That's what I do, it's like a martial technique, actually. I'm just going to calm down. Okay, we need you again. Okay. And sometimes it's on and on and on and on. And you feel like, hey, guys, sorry, I'm not a machine. I'm a human. So right now, we're going to take a break. I'm not asking you to take a break. I'm going to take a break, because I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to hurt someone. And I just want to be good on screen.
Absolutely. And taking breaks and, I think, as you say, centering yourself is very important because you're playing with lives. That knife is aluminium, but you could get that in someone if you had to, and you could end a career or a life very quickly. My last question about the fight scene, and I've said to you, we both love this scene. We both love the Bourne Identity. It's why we're talking about it with you today. What's your favorite moment from that fight scene?
When I get up. When he kicked me and then I pass, flying after, on the desk, and then finally I get up, and I took off the knife, the pen, from my hand before to go back there and keep on fighting. That's my favorite part of the fight. I think it's brilliant. And that was one of my ideas, actually. So I said, come on, it's like a Terminator, he's like this guy, he's a machine. He's a killer machine. He doesn't give a damn. Like, for example, he's ready to die. And that's what I said also. I said, I'll put myself through the window. He's not going to kill me. It's like, I'll be back somehow, That's why we have to do the Bourne Identity. I can be the brother, of Castel. Castel too.
Stranger things have happened in cinema, to be fair. And you're right. That I had a note about asking you about that little moment where it looks like you kind of kip up a little bit, but it's more robotic. It's like you just sort of rise from the ground and then pull the pen out of your hand. I don't know how you achieve that shot because it looks tremendous.
Yeah, I had to bend over, but backward, and somebody was holding me, on my back, just to push me a little, because mostly it was the end of the day, I guess, by memory. I was so damn tired, and you have to do that sort of thing, all the abs, work so hard. And and then finally just took up the knife, the pen, and just going forward, to keep on fighting. Yeah, it was great, But I mean, yeah. Now I remember it was the end of the day, when we did that. And I said, yeah, dude, he kicks me, and then I just go back like Dracula, same, just ready again. This guy is like unstoppable.
I almost wish I hadn't asked how it was achieved, because in my head I like the idea that you've just got the abs of steel and you can just get up like that.
Not after 12 hours of fighting, let me tell you.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Calling all agents. Independent podcasting, much like the spy game, requires considerable resources, whether it's research, equipment, hosting, or of course constructing a top secret volcano lair. We're putting out the call for your support.
That's right. As you may know, we've activated the Spy Hearts Patreon, home of our ever-growing lineup of Agents in the Field episodes where we decode non-spy films from your favorite spy actors and full film commentaries with more intel than a Basil exposition briefing.
Cam, what have we got in our crosshairs this month?
Well, Scott, calling the Avengers, and I'm not talking about Cap and Hawkeye. I'm talking about Emma Peel and John Steed, because we are going to do a commentary on 1998's The Avengers. Get into your teddy bear suit, people.
And if that sounds delicious, then become a true spy hard today and join the circus at patreon.com/spyhards. But before this message self-destructs, Cam, resume the spy jinx.
Well, I had a few questions just about Brotherhood of the Wolf, which is one that has a lot of cult fandom around it. And I would just like to know, I guess, just first off, Christoph Gans, the director of that film, the world building in this movie is really crazy. It is a large scale film. I would just like to know about being a participant in that, kind of walking into the world he's created.
It was a bit. It was crazy to mix all the different genres, at the same time. And mostly for our parts, that's what I told him. I said, how do you, and it was a little bit the same, because he's very concerned about the techniques, and as a director, just for actors, he's a little bit like Doug Liman. He doesn't give you so much information, so you got to pick, or you got to ask, or you got to propose. And that's what I told him. I said, so how do you see those guys? I said, because it's very weird. I mean, they cannot really do Kung Fu, in the 17th century, it's very bizarre. So they got to be like maybe from Mongolia, and they got some sort of bad attitude, they're really bad guys. So I said, what do you think? They almost like a Hells Angels. They're like a motorcycle gang. What do you think? He said, oh, that's a brilliant idea, Nicky. Yeah, totally. And I said, if they are like, mixed, like maybe like Mongolian or something like that, maybe then they can pretend to do some, martial art techniques, but no, with the, typical like position of martial arts. He said, yeah, that's brilliant. So finally, with Philip Koch, who was the fighting choreographer from actually John Woo, and a brilliant actor also. When you see Philip Koch, in different Kung Fu movies, he's so good. Then we said, yeah, we're going to do something like some sort of milkshake, again, some mix of different things, but not totally like Kung Fu style, because that didn't make sense, for the film. And it worked pretty good, actually.
Yeah. And your character has like a very like feral fighting style. When you go into a different movie, and obviously you're a very trained martial artist, what goes through the process of basically establishing the character's fighting style? Because the way you fight in Brotherhood of the Wolf is very different than the way you fight in, the Bourne Identity.
Like I just said, I'm going to ask questions to the director, and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to change the way I'm going to fight, from my character, because La Figure, he's not like Castel. And Castel is not like the skinhead, in the Crimson River, and like Arsène Lupin or whatever. Every time I have some action to do for a part, I want to know even the past, what they've been learning as fighters, or what can I bring through my character to make them fight like in a certain way, because that doesn't make sense. And if it looks exactly the same, even for me, for the pleasure that I have to be on set, it's like, okay, I'm gonna copy myself, from what I did from the Bourne or this or that. No, I'm just trying to change. And most of the time, people who's know certain people, certain fan, they know me through what I did. It's like every time they say, Nicky, that's crazy because we don't recognize you. Every time you do something, you are so different in the part, in the way you fight. And I said, yeah, but that's my job as an actor, and that's even more pleasure for me, because if everyone recognizes exactly, like, with all respect, but Jean-Claude Van Damme, he fights exactly the same way every time, with the big split, jumping big split and all this and But the thing is that after a while, me as a spectator, I got bored. I was like, no, I want, show me something different. And again, I come back on and I jump back on Bruce Lee. If you see each films, you can see that it's Bruce Lee, but like Big Boss, Enter the Dragon, or whatever, it's different. He brings every time different techniques, and to be humble, that's what I try even now to do.
As an actor, do you really appreciate too, like, very, very different costuming and makeup? Because when I look at you in Brotherhood of the Wolf, you don't look anything like you do in the Bourne Identity. Is that something that you really pursue, is very, very different looks as well, just visually, for your characters?
Of course, it's I'm trying to get close, not to have like fake hairs or beards or whatever. That was my real hair actually in the Brotherhood of Wolf. And you're gonna keep that face, for a few months, and just to be closer and to be like ready to feel, to be the part actually. And it's such a great pleasure, because as an actor, you're not going to be you for like few weeks, few months, and you're going to use who you are to be that different person. But I'm like a kid. I play, when you're a kid, when you play the cop, the bad guy, the cowboy, the whatever, you feel like you are, and me, I feel exactly the same, even a few years after. Mm-hmm. Even at my age, the process, it's exactly the same.
And I talked about John Wick Chapter 3 a little bit earlier, and you work with Mark Dacascos, who was in John Wick Chapter 3 in Brotherhood of the Wolf, and I would just love to know about choreographing an action sequence with him, because he's also a fabulous martial artist.
Same as Matt Damon, a great man, a great guy, so gentle, so funny, also on the top of it, and so good in the way he practiced martial arts. I mean, it was like the same, and nobody got hurt, he's so accurate, so precise, on what he does. I mean, yeah, we had a good time. We had a good time for the rehearsals. We had a good time on set, and outside the set, for like when we were having the lunch, dinner, or whatever, he was so cool. And like I said, so funny. He makes jokes all the time, and having fun. And he's so close to nature, to animals. I mean, he's a sweetie. He's such a lovely guy, really.
And just to bring it back to Bourne, you work with Vincent Castel in Brotherhood of the Wolf, as well as you mentioned, Crimson Rivers. I'm curious, Vincent Castel went on to play a Bourne assassin in the 4th Jason Bourne movie. Did you ever have a conversation with him when he got that role about playing that kind of assassin?
Nope. And we friends. we know each other for quite like a little while. I didn't know. It was a surprise, when I saw the film. And not too bad, because I was like, of course, you look like with a different eye, mostly when people as friends and as people that you've been working with. And No, it did. The film by itself, I think, is not the best one of the franchise. That's my personal point of view. Let's say, but the race car, was brilliant in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it very much, and the ending fight, yeah, not bad. Yeah.
It sounds like it's almost passing muster for you. Now, I had a little question. Now, we haven't tackled this film on the show yet, so I haven't watched it. I'm not going to go in pretending I know anything about it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, because at some point we're going to cover Hitman.
Oh, yeah.
Which you worked on in 2007. Do you have any memory about that film at all, and what you did with the role?
Well, it was in Bulgaria at the time when we shot the film. And with Timothy Olyphant, and which is also a very nice guy. The thing is that for what I remember, he didn't like that much, to do the fight, even to rehearse and all that. It was not like a pain in the ass, but let's say that, he was more concerned about his part. And like I told him, I said, yeah, but at the same time, it's a part of your part,
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have so much time to rehearse and to get prepared. So I did actually all the fight. I got prepared in France, in Paris, with a double, with a stunt guy. And then finally, when we were on the set with Timothy, we only had like few days. So he was also getting prepared with also a stunt to make my part, to get prepared. So it was very bizarre at the same time, because that kind of fight, who was supposed to be some sort of Castel, Bourne Identity fight again, yeah, it was like a little different, but no matter what, on the set for what we did, and we did not too bad. They cut a lot. They cut a lot of the fight, and of course, we didn't have so much time. So the other half that we don't see on screen, but it was very well done. It was with a double, because Timothy didn't know all the choreography, so that's why. But it's very bizarre, because this film, I heard the director had some problem with, on one hand, La Fox was going just perfect, but then Luc Besson also got into the production, and then they changed totally the editing. So it was like a confusion, I guess, between the two productions and all that. So Xavier Jans, the director, wasn't very happy about this experience, because too much compromise, I guess, and he didn't do the film that he wanted to do.
I hadn't really been looking forward to eventually tackling it, but now I know I get to see you in a fight scene, so at least I'm looking forward to that part. I appreciate that. But I think before we move on, we have like a set of questions we ask everyone on the show, which I'll get to in a second. But I was looking at your IMDb before I jumped on here, and I've noticed that you've also written some shorts and directed some shorts yourself. You've just written another one called Chocolate Monsters that came out in 2020, and I mean just a little bit about because you've been doing shorts since around the time Bourne Identity came out, so you've been doing this for a long time. How do you find working on that side of cinema, making shorts and directing and writing, compared to doing the stunt work? What do you prefer out of the two? What gives you more joy?
It's very hard, because I love to work as an actor when they choose me to play parts, and I love to direct fights and actions also for directors. It's very exciting also, but to a certain point. So that's why after a while, when I was also working as a stunt coordinator and a fighting choreographer, I got a little tired of it also, because just to talk about violence, it's it could be, for me, quite annoying after a while. So I needed more. And so that's why I decided, because I wanted to. Like I said, I wanted to be an actor, but not only when I was a kid. I also wanted to direct fire. I wanted to direct straight, just like films. I wanted to write. I wanted to tell stories. So that's why. And now I really hope that I will also direct like a feature, like a TV
Hmm.
show or whatever, because I feel like quite ready and prepared now to take that responsibility. And maybe with some action, maybe not, I don't know. And that's what we do, with the shorts. And also with shorts, you get much more freedom that you when you have like big majors, behind you. Sometimes they ask you and to tell you exactly what they want. With shorts, it's not the same industry. And you don't make the same money also. Most of the time you lose money. But you're doing it for like a different reason, I guess, and that's what we do. Mostly with my lovely lady, on my side. That's what we do. And we even did like, and it's almost done, almost finished, a sequel of Chocolate Monsters, because it was the time of the first, how do we say, a lockdown, when we did the Chocolate Monsters. So we had to film ourselves. No teamwork, just the two of us, something very crazy. And to be honest, really, when we saw our film, I even did the editing, everything. That was crazy, except that I have a good friend, a composer, he's a very good guitar player, he's such a great composer. I mean, he's incredible. So he gave us a hand, for the sound design, for the music and all that. But for the rest of it, it was only the two of us. And I took a look of my lady, and I said, you know what, if we have like one festival, two festival selections, it will be like a great and big success. And you know what? We had like over 70 selections and we had like 30 awards, something crazy. So what we did, the film that I wanted to do with the teamwork, we did like a sequel. And we started with the first one, 2 people, and the second one, we were like 20. So it's almost done. Like in 2 weeks, I will be able to do like a little premiere of the sequel of Chocolate Monsters #2.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, aside from that, aside from stunt work, now we need to figure out a little bit more about you before we wrap up the show. We have a set of questions we always ask our guests, and I've got a couple of bonus ones for you as well. We're a spy movie podcast. That's what we talk about every week. That's why we're here talking about the Bourne Identity. What I want to know from you, Nicky, is what's your favorite spy movie?
I think I'm going to go back again on James Bond, because when I saw Sean Connery when I was a kid, same. I wanted to be James Bond. I wanted to be Sean Connery. So that's my first spy emotion, was, yeah, against Dr. No, Goldfinger, and also the soundtrack, the music. I just do remember, and that's one of the biggest difference, from what we see now. It's at the time we could just remember the music. It's crazy. Nowadays, it's different. Music is like in a second or third or fourth position, at the time. Like if you see like the Sergio Leone movies, with Clint Eastwood, you just remember also the emotion brought by the music. So James Bond, down, 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 down. It was crazy when I was a kid, man. Mostly it was a nice suit and the, butterfly tie. And oh my goodness, James Bond, definitely.
Yeah, none of us have really dressed for the occasion today. None of us have a martini in hand,
I got
unfortunately.
the hoodies
but,
like you guys.
We're all in hoodies. We're all in hoodies. Moneypenny would not be happy with us today.
We're more Ethan Hunt at this point, yeah, in his hoodies.
Yeah. That's very true. That kind of leads me on beautifully. You mentioned a couple, but if I was going to ask you what was your favorite Bond movie, what would it be?
Again, with Sean Connery, Diamonds Are Forever.
Interesting.
Good timing. That literally we dropped our episode on that this week when we recorded it. So that's I've got diamonds on the brain right now.
Yeah, I think it's lovely. Mostly with the two guys, the two killers, kind of strange, we don't know exactly are they gay or not or whatever, I thought that was beautiful because so unexpected, at the time. I was like, wow. And it's the way it's directed and everything. It's and also with George Lazenby. What's the name of it already?
On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Thank you. It's lovely, and that's the only way they did. But I think it's he did pretty good, really, and he was a good friend of Bruce Lee, also on the top of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the stunt stuff in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. We spoke to John Glenn, who shot the second unit, a lot of the stunt work in the film, and it's above and beyond a lot of what we had so far with Bond and would have for a while afterwards. So yeah, good shout on that one. Which actually leads me on beautifully to my next question. We're talking about a fight scene in Bourne Identity today, but what is your favorite fight scene in cinema history?
Wow, that's a hard one.
I know. I'm not taking it easy on you.
Oh my goodness. How I have so many, and how it's going to be the end of Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee and Mr. Han. That's it. It's impossible for me. I cannot go against Bruce, It's the one, and it's so drama, so tragical, so intense, and with all the mirrors and stuff, and the way he works, and he gave us so much, You see even Sylvester Stallone, in Rambo when he walks in the groves and stuff. It's the same. It's yeah, that's the one. That's the one I like. But not only because I have so many.
It just seemed quite unfair to ask you that, but I think it's a beautiful answer. And we are going to do Enter the Dragon at some point on the show as well, so I'll be interested to dive into that. But I think before we let you go, the last question I have, we spoke about Bourne Identity, we've spoken about a couple of other films, Hitman. What's something you've worked on that maybe hasn't had the notoriety of Bourne that you want to tell people about and share with our audience they can go and check out?
That I'm quite proud too, because it's a very beautiful character, beautiful part. It's the Arsène Lupin. I play Théophile Lupin, the father of Arsène Lupin, and yeah, I like the film, and not to be pretentious at all, but I really like what I did, in the film. And also my son really loved what I did, that part. And yeah, it was a very good experience. And yeah, I recommend to see the film. It's like very entertaining on the top of it.
Perfect. No, you should be proud of your work. And that's why we always ask. I want to hear the things that people haven't necessarily seen.
It's important, I mean, you can be hard on yourself because, of course, I try to push myself the best I can. But it's also good to recognize, what you do good. It's very important, You got to be gentle to yourself,
You're only here once. You've got to have some joy. Absolutely.
Totally.
Well, congratulations again on the medal. Congratulations on the scene that you put together in the Bourne Identity. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us today about it. It's been an absolute blast, Nicky.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a great pleasure, to share, all that part of life, with you guys. It was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was absolutely incredible.
Thank you. There you go, folks. That was our chat with Mr. Nicky Naudé. We said it to him, but again, I want to thank him for taking the time to speak to us at length. It's one of our longer interviews. He was very gracious with his time, all about the Bourne Identity. I mean, the man has a very long career. He's been in a ton of movies, not just the Bourne Identity, but he's still passionate about the project, and I think that showed through in the interview.
Yeah, and that pen fight and his character Castel was an element of the movie that, the Bourne Identity, when it came out, it wasn't like met with like glowing praise, but a lot of the reviews were positive and would note that pen fight. And they would say, like, we've never seen this before. This is different than James Bond, where, it's gadget-laden kind of fight stuff. Whereas here, very hand-to-hand, and the pen was brought up over and over again. And that would be continuing on when you get to Supremacy and, Ultimatum and what have you. Like, they would constantly call back to this household object fight element. And hearing him talk about that was riveting, but also being able to really break it down into the various parts. I don't know that we've gotten to do that. I mean, I guess we got to do that with Joey Ansa, talking about Desh, but like that whole sequence is much like, it's kind of like longer and a little more like, there's just more going on versus like this was a very specific fight we could talk right from beginning to end about.
And, we spoke about sort of the visceral nature of the fight and how fight sequences to that point weren't really doing that style. There were the odd, I mean, it did happen before, but the Bourne Identity really pushed that type of stunt fight choreography of that sort of tight, vicious, close quarters combat style of fighting. And the pen is the prime example. And talking about, in military training, close quarters combat, you're told to utilize items around you, and that's exactly what Bourne does. But people might know this in real life, because in real life fights aren't particularly elegant. They are very visceral. You are going for the gonads, and you're going to the floor most of the time. Cam wouldn't know this.
Well, it reminds me a lot of 3 Days of the Condor. Not this fight's being what you're talking about, like kind of the mess of a real fight where it's Robert Redford versus the Postman. And we've talked about, that scene both in our review as well as the commentary, where like that one has a similar frenetic energy. It's much messier because they aren't fully trained combatants, whereas what they're doing in the Bourne Identity is two people who are incredibly well-trained fighters going against each other. And so you have that kind of the messiness and the intensity that comes with that, but filtered through two people that really know how to land a blow.
Yeah, you can really tell that both the scene, obviously, Nick Powell put together with Nicky and with Matt, it stood the test of time. And I think a lot of people look back at this scene, this fight sequence, and use it as an example for what they do with their own fight sequences. I mean, we spoke to Joey Ansa, as you mentioned, a couple of years ago now. And I have to think at some point when they were putting together that fight scene with Jason Bourne, they went back and watched this one again. Not to necessarily crib anything or to avoid cribbing anything, but just to go, this is the style we're going for, and how do we enhance that and push it to the next level? But you had to start that somewhere, and that's what they did in this film. The pen is one of those moments of cinema history now. It was just a choice they made on when they put in that fight together, but it's what people think about when they think about the Bourne Identity. I think potentially one of the three images that it evokes in your head straight away is the pen going into the hand, and also like Nicky pulling out of his hand in that shot and then going back into the fight. What a badass moment that was. And and talking about some other things with Nicky as well. I mean, my favorite moment from this interview, and we'll put a clip online of the video on YouTube. You can check us out on youtube.com/spyhard, where you can get little clips of these interviews, little bits of the video sometimes. We were talking about the push dagger. Just mentioned it, and then he just pulls it out of a drawer. And it's a real push dagger that they used in a fight. It wasn't like a little rubber thing. So this is a professional stuntman, of course, actor and director in his own right as well, pushing a push dagger at Matt Damon, who at this point had done some really great films. That could have gone horribly wrong. And it just blew me away that he had that to hand, but also the risk level involved with that push dagger, and just how effortless they make it look in the film. I won't forget that moment when he pulled out the push dagger, and you'll see it in the video of me just like a gasp, basically. A great moment.
We've had a couple instances of this, because we had like Matt Charman, when we talked to him about Bridge of Spies, after the interview, showed us the lighter that the Tom Hanks character used in real life. And this was another moment like that I won't forget, of that push dagger being pulled out and just being like, oh my God, I'm looking at the actual prop from the movie. Like, this is so cool. And Nicky was just so giving with not just his time, but just like, the enthusiasm he had talking about these experiences, showing us things like the push dagger, talking about his own martial arts background, and, how he's still competing in martial arts and had, just scored a very prestigious title recently at the time we'd done that interview. So he's just someone who has a very, I think, interesting life and is very enthusiastic about just sharing it with other people as a means of, kind of passing on the inspiration of what you can achieve if you, commit yourself to something.
Yeah, and I think that passion for not just film, but for martial arts and physical fitness, I think that has definitely turned him into a very positive person. And like you said, generous with his time, generous with his attitude, and it's just great to see, because we've spoken to lots of different people on these SpyMaster interviews now, and there's been a couple where we've had to try. This one, we didn't have to try.
No, this was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I can't speak highly enough of the man, and I mean, we could sit here for another 20 minutes and recount some of our favorite moments, but ultimately, I went into this loving that fight scene in The Bourne Identity, and I came out of it loving it even more, knowing that the amount of craftsmanship that went into it, the amount of care, the amount of love that went into this small part in a film that I think changed not only the course of spy movie history going forward, but cinema history. Because people forget, like, The Bourne Identity, like you said, it wasn't a big box office hit, but it infected things. Editing changed. Action changed. That's why we had such esteemed guests this week, John and Ashley. John works with stunts, and obviously Ashley works in editing. The Bourne Identity, but also the Bourne films itself, did so much for cinema that I don't think it gets the love it deserves sometimes. And I'm glad we could give it a little bit more love by fleshing out some information on one of my favorite scenes in the film.
This fight scene to me feels like the sort of moment that when Paul Greengrass jumps on for Supremacy, and they're looking to take it in a little bit of a different direction than what Doug Liman was doing, obviously. When he's watching the Bourne Identity and figure out, what he wants to kind of bring to this franchise, I feel like a moment like this pen fight he hones in on and is like, okay, I love that, more of that, and then maybe cutting some elements that he wasn't as big a fan of. But I feel like the kind of the picture of what Bourne became for his run of that franchise, where you had him making 3 more Bourne films, it was moments like this that probably fueled his imagination to keep evolving that franchise.
Absolutely, and to be fair, this film came along quite early in Nicky's sort of filmography, still acting and performing and directing now. He's had several successful short films come out in the last few years. But Cam, you asked him about a couple of his other bits of work.
Yeah, I just asked him about Brotherhood of the Wolf, which is a very interesting French period piece action movie, horror movie. It's many different things in one. It's some fantasy in there. It is a movie that is very hard to explain. If you look up a synopsis on Wikipedia or whatever, you'll sit there and go like, wait, what? This sounds like a pastiche, and it kind of is. But it's a really fascinating movie where it is kind of this like traditional period piece romance tied with like werewolves and martial arts action and all that sort of stuff. And so I was just really interested to hear him talk about the very odd world created within that movie and his part in it. And he features in several action scenes in that movie, and you get some really incredible martial arts from him.
And we did also brush past the Hitman film, which we will tackle down the road, because it is kind of spy adjacent and has quite a few spy stars in it too. So we will be tackling the Hitman. I think there's 2 films, Cam, is that right?
That is correct, yeah.
Currently, at least, anyway. So we will be tackling it. So we had a couple of questions about Hitman, which obviously you would have heard in the interview, but it's nice to do a SpyMaster interview about a film we haven't even tackled yet.
No kidding. Although, Hitman, I don't know that the demand is fully there yet, but come on, guys, let us know. Do you want Hitman, and how soon?
Hey, if we can get like Olga Kurylenko in or something like that, that'd be great.
I mean, bring her on just to talk about Black Widow. I think that's more interesting, personally, but fair enough to you, Scott.
There's also, that little film called Quantum of Solace there as well.
That as well.
There is that. A boy can dream, at least, anyway. But just to wrap us up, this might be the last time we ever talk about Jason Bourne, which is something quite interesting to say.
That's actually not accurate, because we will be. We are at some point. We've had so many people pester us online that at some point we will talk about the Bourne Identity TV movie that existed with Richard Chamberlain, because it's like people have just really held our feet over the fire about that one. So I think we'll have to at some point, but probably not anytime that soon.
Yeah, well, there's definitely been one champion at least. And I'm looking at you, Ian, who has been clamoring for us to tackle the Richard Chamberlain TV movie. He's definitely an older Bourne in it. It should be a very interesting look at it. So we will be revisiting potentially the world of Jason Bourne, but I think certainly the Matt Damon world of Jason Bourne may well be finished now.
It's so hard to say, right? Because like Universal doesn't have a lot of properties. They've got Minions and they've got Fast and Furious, but like at a certain point they're going to be looking at Bourne being like, we made a lot of money off these movies, we want something else. So I don't think it's insane that in the next 4 or 5 years, or maybe even a little less, we hear talk at least of a development of some sort of Bourne spin-off, sequel, reboot, something or other.
Could we get another Bourne film? Yes. Do I think Matt Damon's ever coming back to the role? No.
Never say never.
Ever?
Ever.
Say never again. I can never resist that one. But there you go, folks. As I say, that could be the last time we ever talk about Matt Damon's Jason Bourne. And it's been quite a ride over 2 years. I think we're coming up to 2 years now of talking about these films. We're glad you could be here this week to help us celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Bourne Identity. But Cam, that leads me on to the question, what are we tackling next week?
Yes, we are tackling 2010's Salt, starring Angelina Jolie, a movie that owes just a little bit to the Bourne Identity, I think, and the other Bourne films that followed.
And speaking of connective tissue, we are joined once again by the fantastic M from the Verbal Diorama podcast. She'll be bringing down her expertise, and I know she's a big fan of female-led spy films, and frankly, so are we. So I can't wait to check out Salt, and of course your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to watch Salt and join us next week. If you've enjoyed our coverage of the Jason Bourne franchise, our Jason Bourne Roundtable, or you just enjoy the show, please do consider leaving us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. It just helps us spread the Spy Hards love. And do not forget to follow us discreetly on social media at SpyHards. That's SpyHards. But until next week, listeners, I think this episode was proof that the pen truly is mightier than the sword.
Exploring the works of John le Carré, each episode of the Le Carré cast looks at a specific novel or an unexplored aspect of his life and work. Join us as we take a deep dive into the world of espionage John le Carré has revealed. Search for Le Carré Cast wherever you listen to podcasts or at lecarrecast.com.